This is the second official taping of our book, and it is called The Fox That Wanted 9 Golden Tails by Kathleen Gray Nelson. This book is in the public domain. Yesterday, we went through chapters 1 and 2, and the synopsis is interesting to say the least. Basically, there's a fox, and he is telling us a story about if foxes can live 100 years without being chased by a dog, then they have an option to become beautiful women. And if they live 1,000 years in peace without being chased or bit by a dog, then they have an option to have 9 golden tails and become a celestial fox. Well, this fox ended up finding this really amazing forest, and he kind of hunkered out in it and became happy and fat and slow, and he was chased by a hunter with leopards. And they cornered him, and then a dragon showed up and basically said, well, today's your 100th birthday, and if you want to become a beautiful woman, then you should have that chance. So instead of dying, he said, I want to become a beautiful woman. And then the hunter found the woman, which is the fox, of course, and took her and said, you're my property, and married her, and she became a princess, and they nicknamed her Princess Wildflower. And then it just got very girly from there, and talking something about moonbeams and silver tears and ants with flowers. So, oh no. So now we're at chapter 3. If I can get back down there. So at the end of chapter 2, I should say that the fox was going very unhappy because she wanted to be back in her forest. And so she demanded that her husband, slash the hunter, slash the prince, take her back to the forest and leave her there. So now we're at chapter 3. When the princess looked into the mysterious land, where not a sound was heard, she gathered up her rich silken skirt in both hands, and jumping ashore, ran as fast as her feet would carry her over the same ground where once the leopards had chased her when she was a fox. She lost one of her sandals. Her hair, that was fastened high on her head with fans and golden pins, slipped down on her shoulders, and the jeweled clasp at her waist dropped off. But she never stopped or looked behind. The prince followed as fast as he could. But so fleet of foot was she that she left him far behind, and when she reached the big tree with the hollow trunk, she fell down before it, crying, "O most powerful dragon, make me a fox again, for now I know it is better to be a fox than a woman." Then out of the hollow tree came the same hideous creature she had seen before, and when it opened its yawning mouth its teeth shone like ivory spears, and she thought it was about to swallow her. But the dragon only looked at her and sniffed scornfully until the smoke from its nostrils darkened the air. And when the prince came in search of Wildflower, only a gray fox started through the tangled weeds and bushes and was lost in the deep dark wood. The prince looked after it longingly. "Oi, oi," he cried, which is Japanese way of saying hello. "Would that I had my leopards with me, then I would give chase and catch you, my fine fellow." But he had no time to bother with the fox when his loved one was lost in this queer and dangerous place, and he rushed frantically about the forest calling, "Wildflower, Wildflower, dear Wildflower." But he sought her for so many days, and all the rowers joined in the hunt, and he never saw her again. So he went back to the bamboo castle, very sad and lonely. But everyone there, tired of her airs and her temper, said she was a witch, and he was well rid of her. When he thought over how peevish she had become, he was inclined to agree with them, and finally he married a pretty and amiable little princess, and Wildflower was forgotten. And out in the shadowy depths of a certain wood a cunning gray fox smiled until he showed his shining teeth, when a saucy bird, mocking the prince's call, repeated "Wildflower, Wildflower, dear Wildflower," in its merry song. Then he lay down and rolled over in the wet leaves and licked his fur contentedly. "I'm glad I'm out of that," he said. "Now I'll wait until the 1,000 years are up. Nothing will satisfy me except to be a fox with 9 golden tails." With never a regret, he went back to his old life, and hunted mice and creeping things when he got hungry, and when there was neither moon nor stars, ran through the black night to the farmhouse far beyond the edge of the forest, and came back in the gray of morning with his lips all bloody and his paws as well, the signs of his midnight feast in the chicken yard. The wonderful wood, so dark, so still, so cool, put on patches of color with the passing month, and in the few spots where the sunshine sometimes crept, the trees grew vivid with the burning glory of autumn, or pale and cold with the first blue blossoms of spring, then softly pink with azalea blooms, or bright as a glowing sunset with the flowers of peach and cherry. And in the period of greatest light the leaves would cover the ground and make soft beds where all the wild things could sleep snug and warm during the period of greatest cold. As for the fox, though he was a bit quarrelsome, the years passed pleasantly and peacefully. No one ever again came there to hunt, and such queer things had been whispered abroad about what happened in this pathless country, where lived such strange creatures as never man had seen, that travelers went far out of their way rather than pass through it. And on stormy nights, when the wind howled and the windows rattled, and the tempest-torn trees swayed and groaned, people all over the island barred their doors tight and fast, for they said, "The spirits of the woods are out tonight," and they lit incense sticks to keep them from coming in, and as they sipped their tea, told stories about the weird wood. A favorite one was that a beautiful princess was kept there prisoner by a cruel dragon, and of how a mighty prince once found her and carried her away to his castle. But she heard the dragon calling, calling, calling her all the day and all the night, and at last either she slipped out of the castle and went to him, or else he came and stole her away. No one knew just which it was. And while other brave men would willingly go to rescue her, yet they all agreed what was the use, for the dragon would get her again, and they would have their trouble for nothing. So she had been there for now hundreds and hundreds of years, but was still young and lovely, so the story ran. But like all legends, it got a little twisted in the telling. So many summers and winters came and went that everyone except the fox forgot to count them. At last a famine spread over all the land. It was the period of greatest heat. No rain had fallen for many a week. The earth was dry as a dead leaf. The grass turned brown, the streams dried up, the birds all died or went away. One by one the animals perished, and the once beautiful Napatantutu was grim and desolate. The fox was now 500 years old. His coat of fur was whiter than when he was young, his legs were not so nimble, and some of his teeth were gone. He searched the wood for food and water, and could find neither. He grew so thin that his ribs stuck through the skin, so weak he trembled like the aspen when he walked. The pains of hunger gnawed him day and night, and he felt as if he must surely die. Then he mustered up all the strength he had left, and crawled to the big tree with the hollow trunk. There he fell down, a heap of skin and bones, and called feebly for the dragon. When this terrible creature came out, it blew fire and smoke at him in awful wrath. "I thought you wanted to be a fox with 9 golden tails. Why have you disturbed me?" it thundered. "A fox with 9 golden tails is a nice thing to talk about," the poor fox whimpered. "But a wise man is better than a dead fox, even if it had 20 golden tails. So make me a wizard, great one, and then I will trouble you no more." "Bah!" cried the dragon with such fury that the flames from its mouth flew up to the top of the hollow tree. When they died away the fox was nowhere to be seen. In his place stood a very solemn-looking old man with green spectacles and a bald head. "Dear me, this is most peculiar," he mumbled, as he pulled his long gray whiskers thoughtfully. "I will go to the nearest village and get something to eat. Then I'll come back and talk to that dragon a while." If I can find out some of his secrets, I will make myself the wisest man that ever lived, and then will I become the richest." From one end of the land to the other, and even to the islands far off the coast, spread the fame of the great magician who lived in a cave on a seashore. Princes talked about him in their castles, and the very poorest people in their little bamboo-covered huts, as they counted their grains of rice, told of the wonderful wisdom of the cave man, as he was called. How can do many strange things. But there is no use going to him if you have no money, they said sadly. He is hungry for gold. Meanwhile the cave man waxed rich. The floor of his cavern home was strewn with shining gold, ornaments of silver and ivory were on the walls, and he had great bags of glittering jewels and treasures of untold value, all given him by those who had come to him for help. He could tell when it would rain, and when a man must plant his crop to reap a full harvest, where money was hidden if it had been stolen, and who had taken it, who was the right girl for a man to marry, and who was his secret enemy. He knew what would cure the sick, what would drive away evil spirits, and everything that anyone could ask him. But he was also very cruel. Yeah. When the poor sought him in their sorrow, he took away their last cent. He gave neither to the sick nor to the hungry. "A wise man is greater than princes or kings," he boasted. "Some day I will rule the land, and all men shall pay tribute to me." And he grew richer and richer every day. But still he was not happy. No matter how many costly and beautiful gifts were brought to him, he was never satisfied. He became so mean and miserly that at last the good king said, "We must rid ourselves of this man. Too long have I borne patiently with him, and allowed him to oppress my people. He is very dangerous. If left alone, he may do great harm and become the curse of the kingdom. He has wisdom and wealth, and they have not contented him. What will he want next? Our heads, perhaps?" We're going to just take a break because I'm having internet issues. Yep. Yep, I'm back. Internet issues. Sad, sad, sad. Well, since I'm still recording, I will go ahead and continue the story so I don't mess anything up. Let's see here. So one night, while the caveman slept, the officers of the king crept in, and after beating him with their spears, bound him hand and foot, and carried him off to prison. All the gold and precious stones and splendid gifts the people had brought him were sold and the money given to the poor, and there was feasting and rejoicing everywhere, for everyone had grown to hate and fear him. "You might have done much good," the king told him, "but you worked only evil. I shall keep you in prison for many years, and see if you will learn to be a good and happy as well as wise." The wizard went back to his dark little cell and pulled his long beard all night long. When the sun peeped over the big blue mountains the next morning, he had not closed his eyes. Like many men, wise and otherwise, he knew better how to manage other people's affairs than his own. He had not been able to bring any charms away from the cave. He had neither money nor friends, and in vain he racked his brain for a way of escape from his gloomy prison. "I hate men," he cried fiercely. "Why did I ever become one? They are nothing but stupid, two-legged animals. I see plainly now that it is more honor to be even a common gray fox than the wisest man in the world. Oh, that I had never seen that miserable dragon." But it did no good to talk this way. He was chained fast to the wall in a horrible dungeon, with nothing but bread and water to live on. And the thing to worry about now was how to get out. Just as he was trying to think up some plan, there came the sound of a key turning in the rusty lock. Alright, time out. I am so sorry that you guys keep getting booted. I am having internet issues, and I am in the middle of live recording, so I continued to read. Wow, you didn't miss much. So I'm going to take a quick break before we go on to chapter 4, and feel free to chat. Hopefully the internet doesn't go back out again. So I'm really glad that didn't continue the way that it continued yesterday, when it was very girly and I felt very uncomfortable saying those things. I almost felt like I was in one of those Lisa Frank coloring books there for a moment. But this is a little better. I'm very curious to where this is going to go. Okay, we'll continue on chapter 4, and that'll be the last chapter of the recording. The next moment, he was surprised to see an ugly old woman coming towards him. She was dressed in a purple satin gown, with gold birds embroidered upon it. Her bony fingers sparkled with rings. A long chain of pearls was around her neck, and he knew by the crown on her head that it was the Queen Mother herself. "I have heard that you were very wise," she said, peering at him. "If that is true, why don't you get out of this dark hole?" "Ah, I could," he moaned, shaking his head sadly. "But my charms are all in the cave. I have their key that will unlock any door, a mantle that will make the wearer invisible to mortal eyes, a root that will cure any disease, a piece of money that the one who carries it will never have an empty pocket." Oh, I wish I had that. "And there, too, is the famous pearl that will make the woman who wears it seem the most beautiful woman in the world." The old woman crept closer to him. "What did you say about a pearl?" she whispered breathlessly. "Ah, it is a pearl fit for a queen," he said, pursing his lips. "It is big as the egg of a swan, shaped like a perfect pear, and white as a dragon's tooth. The woman who wears it hung around her neck all men will adore. She will always be young, always the loveliest lady that was ever seen." The eyes of the queen glittered greedily. "Where is that pearl, wizard?" she asked, grasping his arm so tightly that her claw-like fingers dug into his flesh. But the wizard only smiled. "The wise man tells not all he knows," he answered. She caught him by the shoulders and shook him fiercely. "Speak, speak," she commanded. "Tell me where you keep this priceless pearl, or I will have your tongue torn out by the roots." "That would be a pity," he said calmly. "Then the pearl would never be found, and no woman would have the glory of being the most beautiful woman in the world." The old woman screwed up her wrinkled face and tapped her foot impatiently on the stone floor. Then she said with a cunning leer, "If that pearl were mine, so great is the power of beauty, I would rule the land in place of my stepson the king. Then would you be my chief counselor and next to me in authority, which surely would be better than spending all your years in a dark dungeon where no one will ever hear of your wisdom. You could live in my palace and have many servants to wait upon you. And if I were the most beautiful woman, you could become the richest man in the kingdom. It would be a sad thing for the pearl to crumble away and never be worn by a woman, and also for the great caveman to die a wretched death, perhaps of hunger, in this dirty hole." "If I were only free, I could bring you the pearl," the wizard answered. "No one save me can ever get it, for it is watched by a dragon with eyes that are always open and teeth that are sharp and cruel. The queen looked at the door she had just unlocked. I have the key, she said thoughtfully, but there is not only the jailer without, but many guards that you must pass. You have much gold, he suggested. And yet that pearl is worth more to a woman than all the gold and jewels of the earth. It will bring her everything her heart desires. She shook her head. I cannot buy all the guards, she told him. Some of them are old and faithful servants of the king. You must find some other way. You speak of ways as if they were easy to find, he grumbled, and his heart again felt heavy in his breast. They should be. For a wise man, she tauntingly replied. Surely you must have left your wits in the cave too. But I must be off. The king gives a banquet tonight in honor of his bride, who is called the fairest creature of the flowery kingdom, and she likes that better than the name of queen. Stay, cried the wizard quickly. The way is found. Know you the weed with the purple flower that has crimson dots on its petals? A weed with glossy pointed leaves that grows by every wayside and sends out a strange perfume after the sun goes down? The queen nodded. Well, squeeze the juice from the stem of this weed. A few drops of that into the wine tonight, and all the castle will fall into sleep so deep that though I rode away on a prancing steed, no one would hear me. See that my keepers drink of the wine. Then open my door, unloose my chains, and leave the rest to me. The old woman cackled in her thin, shrill voice. Suddenly she stopped and looked at him suspiciously. But will you return? She questioned. You will bring that precious pearl to me? If you stayed away, you would be searched for in every corner of the land. You could not escape my vengeance. No matter how clever you were, the officers of the king one day would find you, even as they found you this time. And when you were caught, your head would be brought back to court. Remember my words, caveman, if you play me false. Only let me get out, and if I do not return, you are welcome to the head of the wisest man in the kingdom, he told her. But you must give me 7 days, 3 to go, 3 to come back, and 1 day to persuade the dragon to give me the pearl. For he is a jealous monster and ugly when he is roused. It will not be an easy matter to get him to give me his treasure, and no one can steal it from him. After the sun had set on the 7th day, I will stand before you. Wearing my magic mantle, I will slip by the soldiers and the guards like a puff of wind, and no one will see me pass. No one hear my footsteps. And because this time I will have all my charms with me, no man can harm me. And I will bring you the greatest gift that was ever given to a woman. Still chuckling to herself, the old woman unlocked the door of the little cell and slipped away. When she had gone, the wizard laughed until his chains rattled. Then he lay down on the hard floor and fell into a peaceful sleep. That night the banquet in the king's palace was a merry affair, and when the rejoicing was at its height, the queen mother came in and said, Let us send wine to all the servants and to the jailers and even to the guards without, that they may all drink to the health of the lovely queen. Good, good, cried the king, and he raised his cup on high. Everyone in the whole city shall have food and drink tonight. Let it be given freely to all. But the eyes of many were already so heavy that they forgot to cheer his words, and soon, one by one, they fell over as they sat eating and rolled upon the floor. At last even the king was overcome, and went fast asleep in his great carved chair with his crown awry, and all of the servants, having had much wine, lay at their posts like dead men. Okay, we're just going to take a quick break here. My dog is wanting my attention, so I shall give it to him. Hello. Come here. Here we go. You can hang out with me while I finish reading this, yeah? Oof. Say puppy. Okay. Okay, baby. He is one fluffy boy, that's for sure. Isn't that right? Huh? Say hi. Whoa. Hello, hello. He's camera shy. But he's a cutie. Aren't you? Aren't you a cutie? Yes, you are. Alright. Let's get him up here so we'll read together. Alright. Where were we here? Da, 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 da. Good, good, cried the king, as he raised his cup on high. Everyone in the whole city shall have food and drink tonight. Let it be given freely to all. But the eyes of many were already so heavy that they forgot to cheer his words, and soon, one by one, they fell over as they sat eating and rolled upon the floor. At last even the king was overcome, and went fast asleep in his great carved chair with his crown awry, and all the servants, having had much wine, lay at their posts like dead men. When all was still, the queen mother ran to the prison, and taking the keys from the waist of the sleeping jailer, unlocked the wizard's cell. He was expecting her, and he cried impatiently. You are long in coming. The people everywhere will soon be astir, and they will capture me and bring me again to the king if they meet me on my way to the cave. For he did not want her to know that he was going straight to the haunted forest. While he talked, she had unfastened his chains with trembling hands. Go, go, she entreated. There was not a moment to be lost. Even now the fireflies are putting out their lights and waiting for the dawn. See, here is the gold to pay for your journey, and food to last you for a week. Hurry back to me with the wonderful pearl, and when I am the most beautiful woman in the land, you shall be the greatest man. When I return, you shall be, in truth, the fairest woman ever looked upon, he promised solemnly. Then he wrapped his cloak about him and bowed himself from her presence. When he was out of sight, the old lady, he laughed to himself, and ran like a shadow through the sleeping town. On and on he went, over the fertile plain of the sweet flags, and through the long fields of waving rice, never once stopping to get his breath until he stood on the banks of the river. There he found a boat fastened to the shore, and soon he was rowing up the stream with all his might. No. But not yet was he safe, because so many people throughout the country knew the caveman and hated him. He was in constant fear of being seen. In the daytime he hid in the tall rushes on the river bank and slept, and all the night he plied his oars with feverish zeal, until his hands were blistered and his back about to break. Once a party of fishermen came so close to the reedy shore, where he lay trembling, that he could hear every word they said. And what he heard did not make him any more comfortable. The king has offered a great price for the head of the caveman, said one, and men are hunting all over the island for him. Even if he were a needle, they would find him. On the night of the great banquet he cast a spell in the court and caused everyone to fall asleep. Then he opened his prison door and ran away. Now the king will know no peace until he is dead, and whoever brings his head to the city will be a rich man for life. I wish I could be the lucky one, said another. I've been looking in every boat today for him. It seemed to the frightened caveman that they must hear his heart beating, so near he was, and perhaps they would had they not been so busy talking. When at last they went away, he did not dare to move for a long time, and that night he rode harder and faster than ever. Okay, we're taking another break. So I could put this sleepy boy down. The sleepy boy? Go on. Okay. Let's get back to where we were. I have to get comfortable in my seat again. Alright. When the morning of the 6th day dawned, he cried aloud for joy. For in the dim light he saw the familiar shadows of Napatantutu, When he had come near, even within the shade of the great trees and the overhanging vines, he leaped out of the boat, and as soon as his feet had touched the ground, started towards the home of the dragon. He had thrown away his cloak, his food, his gold, for he no longer had need of them. Once more he was to be free. In the wood all was silent and lone. Not even a bird was stirring as he sped over the cool wet grass. The daylight had not yet crept through the thick leaves, and once he stumbled over a dead log and rolled headlong into a muddy hole. The only light he saw came from a frog, who had filled himself with fireflies, and they now shone through his round stomach like a shaded lamp as he slept under a sheltering bush. The darkness was just stealing away when he came to the big hollow tree and knocked twice. "Alas, most powerful one, I am here again," he cried, as the dragon writhed slowly out. "It is quite as bad to be a wise man as a pretty woman. One is stupid, the other useless. A fox is a far finer creature than either of them, so make me a fox again, O mightiest of living things, and this time I will be content for the 1,000 years to pass." "Will you never be satisfied?" snorted the dragon. "You are not willing to be what nature made you, and you don't like anything I do for you. Still, as you have not yet been chased by a dog, I must grant your wish. But the next time you get into trouble, you needn't come to me, remember that." And a moment later Gray Fox ran past the hollow tree, and with mighty leaps and bounds went crashing through the thicket. So this is where we end chapter 3. Oh no, chapter 4. Right, yeah. Yep. Okay, perfect. Alright, I am stopping this recording.